My name is Weshoyot Alvitre. I am Tongva in Scottish. I am other things for the sake of ease and clarity. I identify with the communities in which I was raised. I use the term Tongva because it is the name we have reclaimed to call ourselves, in our own language, to remove the label given to us by the Spanish colonial system and by anthropologists. We are not of the mission San Gabrielino. We are not of the village of Quiche, as there were many villages that make up who we are as a people. Sadly, we have been dissolved from the structure of over 100 individually named villages, over 10,000 individually named populations, into a small surviving group of people today trying to maintain our sovereignty without federal recognition, without reservation lands, but with a strong continued root into the lands that we still call home. The name we call ourselves, from one of the areas first colonized, the village of Toypurina, a place of white earth, a place literally where the first mission was started, where first contact upset the balance of our existence. Junipero Serra penned the cover page to the San Gabriel Book of Confirmations in 1778 as San Gabriel de la Temblores alias Toypurina. Toypurina, it has been shortened to denote where we come from. Tongva, white earth, a place of creation, to us is sacred. We are the people of this earth, of this sacred ground that you stand on, and this is how I refer to my people. My first name is Tongva, given to me by my dad, which means 2 stars. I was born at home, delivered by my dad in the small house up at Satwila Cultural Center, which now houses Park Service employees. He chose to bring me into this world in an act of reclaiming sovereignty in a time that was pivotal in California identity in the early 80s. My last name, Alvitre, is from the Basque region in Spain. Specifically, it can be traced back through a very volatile history in California between Mexico and the indigenous population. Bancroft included the name in his notes. Mission records hold trials and exploitations written in Old Spanish, Alvitre, the name to see through or of the glass. The last name Alvitre comes from the first group of Spanish soldiers brought in to help conquer what would later be named California with the Portola expedition in 1769. Alvitre was on the very first expedition in 1771 to form the old mission, which became Mission Vieja, which is Tongva land. It was moved due to a flood to the current location of Mission San Gabriel Archangel, which is Tongva land, which would later become the City of Angels, built atop the tens of thousands of dead whose hands built the first buildings of mortar and tule, Los Angeles as we know it. Alvitre was one of the original 9 landholders in the Pueblo of San Jose, neighbor of the Vasquez family, of whom would eventually marry into the family of Regina Josefa Toypurina Montero. The name Alvitre tells a story of a man, Sebastian Alvitre, described later by Bancroft and the missionaries as an incorrigible scamp and unmanageable. He was accused, along with several other soldiers, of the rape of 2 Indian girls near San Diego, along with many stories of infidelities with Native women. He was tried, pled not guilty, but the shadow hung over his name and all that he did to oppose the mission system that was dominant over his status as a soldier. And his history, the last name Alvitre, has forever had a shadow due to the way in which history was, quote, reported, patriarchal and based and biased by whomever is currently in power. Something that when written by anthropological experts or padres or mission officials to the government, pointed out a story of a man who refused to conform to the system and do their sworn duty to God and country, and thus was blacklisted by the establishment and incarcerated multiple times for disobeying the system of structured violence. I bring this into my discussion as something that I found out researching Toypurina's story, and specifically her time of incarceration, after the arrest of the revolt. I have Spanish bloodlines, but I also have Indian, and they've been whispering increasingly loud since I ventured on this project almost 4 years ago. Toypurina was a medicine woman from the Tongva tribe, the village of Weshoyot, who led a revolt against the Padres and the soldiers of San Gabriel Mission in 1785. Years prior to the formation of the mission, she witnessed the effects of a rape on the neighboring village and its social structure. Toypurina, a young girl at 9 years old. The chief, whose wife was violated by Spanish leather jacket soldiers, acted promptly. His wife returned to the village after the attack. She informed her husband of what had occurred. The chief took his best warriors to go back and confront the Padres and the Spanish soldiers. He was met with violence. He was killed by the soldiers, beheaded, and then his head put on a stake as a warning to anyone who dare question the authority of the Spanish crown. Toypurina was 9 years old. Her father was a chief, and I am sure due to her status she was privy to more information that would normally be told to a girl her age. A girl seeing the ramifications of rape prior to her own puberty ceremony, bloodshed before bloodshed. While women would be accepted into the chieftain leadership positions, it is noted by anthropologists that the Tongva were a patriarchal society. Although, being a Tongva woman and knowing the roles of both male and female within society, the power dynamics allowed for more balance instead of the regularly attributed male control in a white patriarchal society. She was also a medicine woman, which was a position of power that was a separate entity entirely from the regular hierarchical structure within a village. They were beyond the power structure that existed, and this shows in her actions. In 1785, Toypurina led a revolt against the Padres at the Mission San Gabriel. She, with nonviolent actions and weaponless, led multiple villages in an attack by night. Due to the Spanish soldier overhearing talks and to maintain his loyalty to the system, he told his superiors of the plan. It was foiled, and several Indians, including Toypurina, were arrested. But the resistance of the Tongva people was not extinguished after this one act. Toypurina was placed in a jail at the Mission San Gabriel after the revolt of 1785, pregnant. Her conspirators were also imprisoned alongside her, awaiting trial and sentences. Fellow Tongva men who were given 25 lashes for the crimes that they were accused of. No mention is made as to whether Toypurina also received those lashings, but I venture to guess that they did not omit her from the punishment due to the fact that she was a woman. To me, being an example of was most likely their primary concern after such an act. A thing I wonder is how far along she was with child before the missionaries knew. Before she told them, did she keep her pregnancy secret for fear of them attempting methods to miscarry? Did she tell them immediately in hopes that her punishment would be less severe if there was an ounce of empathy left in those in power at the mission? Was she treated like other savage Indian women? Was she raped in prison, since the possibility of a pregnancy was not a possibility? The amounts of intergenerational trauma, gestational stress and trauma, prenatal abuses her son probably suffered in utero are astounding to even consider. And these incidences of abuse were even prior to those first gasps of breath in his short life. I keep praying that when I work on this book that she was able to find physical safety during her pregnancy. I hope she was able to be a mother to her son for those few short months before he left this world and went back to the sky. His grave is listed in the mission registers. His body is there where his mother risked her life to stand up to this impending threat of colonial structure. The genocide that followed would nearly wipe out her people from existence on the land on which they had lived for thousands upon thousands of years, since creation, since time immemorial, before the first people were created, and before Weshoyot was raised into the sky. In digging further, I found out that Toypurina was caught. Sebastian Alvitre was already there in prison at Mission San Gabriel. The reason? For daring to take an Indian wife below his status in San Jose, repeatedly disobeying a padre who, due to his own reasons, officiated a marriage of said Indian woman with another native, without consecrating the marriage according to their system policies and against the woman's will. The padre informed Sebastian Alvitre that such a move would be looked down upon by those in power. Women were put into line and manipulated. Men were made examples of. After trying multiple times to work within the rules of the mission system, Alvitre then took it upon himself to organize a plan with his lover to escape and to travel south. She with child and with a 3-year-old from a previous lover. They were caught near Mission San Gabriel, and he was imprisoned for disobedience. He was imprisoned while the plan of the revolt was hatched. He could have heard whispers of it during his incarceration. He could have heard whispers of it during his stay. I wonder if he was ever close enough in that small cell to hear Toypurina during those last few months of 1785 and early months of 1786, before he was shipped north to the Santa Barbara Presidio, to be placed in shackles and forced hard labor for his actions. I wonder if her story reached him by her own words before she was sent north, to be baptized, renamed Regina, and then married to a leather jacket soldier by the name Montero, which proved that a soldier could indeed marry for the Indian community without defiling one's rank. Alvitre bore many children with women of Indian blood, some with mission records and others like ghosts who refused to allow the church to name them or their children. Toypurina bore a native son and mixed-blood children, who ended up becoming some of the major families in history of San Jose. Her children continued to stir controversy even after their mother was buried in an unmarked grave at Mission San Juan Bautista, which is built directly on the fault line which connects her back to her homeland, Mission de Santo Archangel San Gabriel de los Tambores, the resting place of many Alvitres sprung from these bloodlines, the resting place of Toypurina's infant son, Tongva land, Tovenskanga. Resistance, the refusal to accept or comply with something, either through direct physical resistance of the changes that were brought forth through the mission system in California, the mental resistance of refusing to allow one's language, beliefs, ways of life above all else, is something running through both the stories of Alvitre and the stories of Toypurina. Over the years and decades and centuries, those opposing bloodlines of Spanish blood and native blood intermingled and became one force that not only allowed our survival, but perhaps even deeper, allow me to be standing in front of you, trying to explain how these figures in history were first and foremost human beings, who made human decisions under an oppressive system which sought to take and to never give back. I am here trying to give back. I try to reclaim what has been buried, and I hope to return the voice to these people who are both part of who I am, bloodlines of resistance. Toypurina. We learned from a young age to be careful with the rattlers. They can be poisonous, but they can also be medicine. My grandpa told me he used to use their bones as teethers for when my father was an infant, the rattles he wore around his neck. They are so tranquil when they are lifeless, painted vessels for the medicine that could kill a man. I thank him for giving me this life to help us in our time of need. We removed the venom and roasted the body with a bundle of offerings that night. My father told me to only ever use medicine this way as a last resort, only when all other avenues have been extinguished. The Spanish would call this a spell. They evoke fear into the hearts of their people as a means of control and power. They commit words to paper pages bound in skins. We commit our words to memory through our language, and even a fire hotter than this could not burn down the volumes that lay within us. Our power is intangible. If I cooked this for the Padres, they would think that it tastes like chicken. They would eat hungrily with no fear that this would be their last supper. A side effect to the venom is drooling, nausea, and paralysis. Because each snake yields different quantities of poison, it is always of risk. But utilized in the ways I was taught makes us certain that one does not survive the venom of a medicine man or woman. After many hours of this state of consciousness, I became exhausted. I fell back into the earth and sunk in, buried. I could feel the weightlessness of space, of the underworld. It was cold and comforting. My breathing stopped, and all was quiet as I tumbled into the sky. I realized all those buried here before had returned back to the stars, and if I fail and they sentence me to death, it is only a sentence to return home. I am nothing more than a cog in the sky. Then I realized something. For the first time, I realize I am not alone. There's something even more precious in my life at this point, something growing, a seed. My blood, pulsating with the proteins and venom plotting to kill, is the same blood flowing through my body into the tiny unborn life buried within my belly. It is a cruel turn of events. Everything just became so much more complicated. This is one of the reasons women are not often the medicine keepers. But part of it was not my choice. Our choice, or my choice. This is bigger than us, of lineage. This is about our life as native people. Our relatives are the dolphins. No matter the risks, the health of the pod is the primary concern of all. The whale does not abandon their own unless it's their time to die, and it is not yet my time to go. From here on out, I am going to have to be guarded. There's too much at stake now. I need to protect that carefully. They're telling me to hold back my impulse. There's something looming on the horizon that's bigger than anything we had ever had to deal with. I am soon going to be here for 25 years. I will need to go by their clock when they are the weakest. The 25th day in honor of my 25th year. It's auspicious from my birth to new birth to rebirth of the resistance. But this will have an air of urgency, for the closer of this birth, the less my focus will be. My mind will be weak to prepare this life to be transferred from the world beyond. It takes much ceremony to bring a star back from being home. My features are angular, like my father's, my hair dark like cormorant feathers from the island. My blood is like tar pitch. Soon my body will change. It'll become swollen from this life growing inside. In this bottle lies the poison to kill a man, several perhaps. Death to the Padres. Death to them for their violence upon our people. Death. The Padre has ulcers, I know it. The firewater they force my people to make from the vines in the courtyard is his drink of choice. It's what he drinks before going on his strolls through the women's quarters. He is a snake. I want his body scorched from the inside out, the original sin. I am bringing the snake from the garden to his lips to drink. Their bonds are weak and breakable, like their religion. Their dispositions, their hold on our land and people, it will be broken. As I have told Nicholas Jose, I will be the one to break it. First, you drain this mix of medicine plant and venom to their drink of choice. They will pour their dust in their expensive chalice. Their vision will quickly become muddied. Next, with the Padres sleeping, we take down these leather jacket soldiers one chop at a time, then drag their bodies out to collect by the prickly pears. Their bodies lined up will stretch the length of the plaza. And under a moonless night, we will bury them before the thunder rolls in. I was given a gift to see these things come to fruition, and given a gift of valuable beads to ensure my position in carrying this out. Material things to solidify intention. What I saw when I accepted these beads from Nicholas Jose should have made me stop in my tracks, though. This gift had a double meaning, 2 strands and 2 hands. While it was confidence that they trusted my role in this plan, I knew these beads would seal my fate as an accomplice and as a prisoner. I saw my own death by the soldiers' hands if we proceeded differently, and in that, the death of a bloodline growing in my belly. That first movement was a jolt. I knew if they found out who the father was, they'd try to kill me as well, my own people, and so the only way to protect him was to accept the beads, the defeat, and to find protection as a prisoner in the shackles of their system. The only way to survive this for my people, for my land, for the future generations to even have a chance, is to slice my heart into pieces and distribute them across the lands. This is how the resistance will survive. Thank you.